Starting with your alignment, do the adjustments you need for your spine to feel like an open channel between earth and heaven. So what do you need to do to root down, to open your heart? And like an antenna, you may want to position your crown towards the cosmos and see if there's any other micro adjustments as you breathe and feel the central axis, attuning to more alignment with your soul, alignment with your guides. Dropping down with your grounding cord beneath your tailbone, going into the earth. A few breaths to root down and find nourishment from Gaia. Allow yourself to stretch out, commune, seek support from the medicine of the earth. And just like a tree being, you can draw nutrients up through your roots. Feel your solid trunk and perhaps the bark or the skin of your tree that makes up your individual sovereign self. As you breathe up towards the heart, and get in touch with your own essence, experiencing yourself as love, independent of the giving of love or the receiving of love. Feel love at the ground of your being. And then fountaining up through the upper chakras like branches, reaching out energetically, dancing and touching those you love, but extending out to your guides and ancestors and angels and all the allies in the world that's seen and unseen. So take a few breaths to feel this tree of life, healthy, full, and feel yourself connected to your partner, both at the level of the roots and also the branches, as you're interdependent. You're strong and independent, and then energetically inseparable. So in the next 5 to 10 breaths, we're going to tune into the frequency of finances. So from the whole high self, we know that we are invaluable. And that money is the game that we play on earth to exchange value. And so from a place of knowing our worth, knowing our value, feeling our abundance, we attune to the topic of money. And we do this with gratitude for how money has supported our partnership, has enhanced our love, feeling the gratitude for the abundance we all have. And the inquiry is, who do we need to be, or what do we need to do to be in alignment with money in the highest good of all. Take a few more breaths to just really listen. And sounding together on the final breath. Mm-hmm. So welcome.
Hey.
Today's opening metaphor is money as lover. Now what's interesting, we know we have all these messages in society around money, in terms of root of all evil, or doesn't grow on trees, or, like money is our time. And like we're all, I'm going to pin my video. We've all got these different like programming stories. And there's some people, especially on this call, we're really abundant group, and we have done a lot of the, the manifestation work and the various, and there's a lot of, even new age spiritual teachings. And some of us even have money damage from that. So if it's not programming that from the, what we get from society, it might be like, ooh, this spiritual church or cult or book, or, those can also be layers of ideas. And the metaphor of money as lover is a pretty radical thing, because we're here working on, ourselves as lovers, our partnerships. And now to introduce this metaphor of like, if you were in a relationship with money, is it a healthy relationship that's like nurturing and thriving? Or is it a toxic relationship? Or maybe it's like a schizophrenic relationship.
Or possessive.
Yeah. Yeah. Or scared, like, like constantly fighting with it. And one of the things like Michael and I talked about, actually, in this case, because we're all poly on this call, is that we're actually in a triad with money. We're in a, and what's interesting is we actually looked at who has, Michael's relationship to money is different than my relationship to money. Money's my lover, money's his lover, but money's our lover. And I'm going to say a few things, like as a sex and relationship coach, is that we all know that communication is key. And so in money, in our relationship with money, like, are we communicating like in a healthy way about it? Or is it something that like, ooh, like it's my secret lover, I don't really talk about her? Or is it something that like I'm, lying about her to myself or to others? Or, but really at the basis of this metaphor, it's like, if money was a tantric lover, then it's like, wow, I really honor the divinity of it. I'm really looking at, what does this lover have to teach me? How do I put energy? Like, we all know we need to have date night with lover. Like, do we actually take the time to talk about it, or do the accounting? And do we come to our accounting with that kind of like, ooh, it's like a date? Or do we come to our accounting like, I have to do this again? It's like, how are you treating your lover?
There's one other thing too, which is around communication. In our culture, we hide, we don't talk about sex, right? We also don't talk about money. It's considered, improper, impolite, to talk about our money, whether we're struggling for money or whether we're, super rich, and we don't tell people that we have that.
Yeah. And so money as like a tantric healthy lovership is the way we want to rewrite, whatever our relationship is to money. Let's look at it like, well, if you put energy into it, what does it do? It expands, but also, does it bring out the best in you? And in essence, like we're going to go through a bunch of different teachings about money, and we kind of invite you to also, next week we'll really invite your wisdom in on this, but to see and feel if there's an opportunity for an upgrade for all of us in this conversation. Michael and I are also like really excited to have an upgrade because we're at the event horizon. This is the last month before 2020. It's a spectacular time to actually upgrade all of our life and all areas of our life. And what does money do? Money supports, all areas of our life. Money supports our relationship. It supports how we want to live. And so money as lovers, the metaphor. And the next inquiry that I have for you, and we're going to go around the circle and start off with this as kind of an icebreaker.
What type of lover?
Yeah.
Are you?
Exactly. Like what kind of money personality do you have? So give me a show of hands if you have done T. Harv Eckert's Millionaire Mind seminars. So he's got this really popular seminar thing. A few of you have. Good. So in his course, he does this really wonderful exercise where maybe you're in a room with 100 people, and he says he gives these 4 different types of money personalities, and then he sends, if you're this type, you go to this corner. So he splits the room into 4 corners. And I want to kind of essentially virtually do that with us. And we're going to go over these 4 types, but I want you to to assess as we're doing it, which type am I, so that you and your partner can say, wow, are we the same type? Are we the opposite type? Because most of the conflicts that we see in relationships with people who are fighting about money is because of how these types get along. Like these types have different compatibilities. So it's going to inform our call. So the 4 types we'll just outline right now, and we'll go over. So there's the saver. There's
spender, saver. Yeah.
Go ahead. Avoider,
and
monk.
Money monk.
And so we want to just outline those 4, and then you get to identify, we'll open it up and you can share what type you think you are.
A monk, though, can a monk be a lover? I guess.
So we're mixing metaphors now. Okay, so do you want to speak into spender?
Yeah. Spender is, as it sounds, the one who doesn't, who's really living for the moment, just likes to spend the money as it comes in, isn't really thinking about the future. You're impulsive, some of these things.
Yeah, but you're a spender if it's like, that's the fun part, right? It's like you've got whether it's shoes or you've got collections of stuff, or you like the new season, or and especially when emotions come up and you're like, ooh, there's emotions, what do I want to do? Retail therapy, that's the tendency. And each of these, by the way, kind of have a light and a shadow. So we're all 4 in some way or another. I just want you to kind of choose your primary style. So saver.
Yeah. And the spender is the generous one. It has some sides that are quite beautiful. They also have trouble saving, which can be looked at as a shadow. But again, those are, yeah.
So the saver, now this is where it's like, you get money and it's like, yay, there's money coming in that it can increase my, bank account, and maybe I'm investing. Maybe I'm just afraid of spending. Maybe I'm, looking for the future, wanting to, save for a rainy day, or when given a choice, like, oh, you could go on this trip, and it's like, oh yeah, but I could also save more money. And
they look at that as frivolous, like things like a trip, they feel like that's something frivolous. Can be the other side of it.
Yeah. And so it's really about putting money aside, and investing in it, and going over accounting too. Like savers tend to be like, hey, I want to look at the accounting, or I want to assess what we have, or count, kind of, you get the idea.
Mm-hmm. And then there's the avoider. And I'll call out, that was definitely my type. I don't like thinking about money. I don't like dealing with it. When people are talking about it, it makes me uncomfortable. I want to be living my life. I want to be free. And so I'm, sometimes, like I won't pay my bills for a period of time, like, cause I'm avoiding it, and I'll get that big pile, and then I have to go in and, dig through it and clean all that stuff up.
And sometimes and it's like, I just want to outsource, somebody else do my taxes. I don't want to deal with it. That kind of avoider tendency. And I'll own that my type is monk, right? So the monk tends to feel like, hey, there's always enough. I'm not, I don't want to, it's not that I'm avoiding money. It's just that, like, when it's needed, it arrives, and then I use it. And so it's like, not important. And there's a sense of, like, even like the shadow of the monk is like, oh, money's not spiritual. Money is lower than me. Money is like really what I'm here. Like, I'm a missionary, and I'm here to, do my work in the world. And if money comes, that money, I actually often will, when I'm writing a check, I'll be like, oh, I'm writing this check to God or something. Like, it's like, I'm not dealing with money on the material plane. It's just, I'm God's secretary or something, if I have to deal with money.
And the monk feels uncomfortable if other people don't have money and they do. So
then I want to give and equal it out. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah. So these are the 4 types. And the point of this is to increase our awareness. And then we're going to go around the circle and talk about it, because if you have a monk with an avoider, it creates certain dynamics which are different than a saver and a spender, or 2 spenders or 2 savers. So let's do a little check-in. And if there's anything you want to add or any questions, this is the time.
Is there anybody who's like, I know what I am, and wants to start off the thing? Greg?
I'm a spender. I'm a spender. Very I don't think about, I'm kind of like the monk, and I trust that there's always going to be more, and there is quite a bit already, so I don't have to think too much about it, but I'll think about it after the fact. I'm a little impulsive, generous spender.
Got it. And Marina.
Oh, hello, everyone.
Hi, Marina.
Hi. I feel like I am somewhere between the monk and the avoider. I think I'm transitioning from monk to avoider.
You're right between Kamala Devi and I. So that's a good place to be, I think.
I don't know if there's an evolution between those 4, but I feel like I definitely can relate to being a monk for many, many years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. So I want to point out the combination between Greg and Marina, between a spender and a monk. And it's just, we'll talk a little bit about how that may bring up. And what's interesting, in my understanding, monk, by the way, is the smallest category. Like when T. Harv Eker, and maybe it's the kind of monks don't really go to T. Harv Eker fucking workshops, but like that was the little emaciated corner. It's like me and like 3 others, But the point being, that group tends to not actually get into fights about money. Monks tend to not like care enough to actually, it's not like there's not a big charge to get in a fight about money. So I wanted to point that out, where a saver and a spender could get into really big fights, but not so much with those archetypes. Okay, who wants to share next?
Okay, Todd.
I liked Greg's characterization. So if Greg characterized or identified as a monkish spender, I would be a spender-ish monk. But I definitely identify more strongly with the monk character. But I do have a tendency to accept and then bring that abundance to physical sort of comfort.
Got it.
Nice.
Thank you.
And you, Renee?
You're a spender monk?
I'm a monk who has a tendency to spend.
He's like a monk with bling. Got
So
it.
I would say for me that I am a saver who's slipping to avoidance, because I think money's been a power struggle between Todd and I. So I've moved from like being very controlling, very worrying, at that kind of saver energy to just absolute avoidance.
Okay. And it has been a conflict between the two of you. Yeah.
Yeah. And now all I've done is just kind of shifted that conflict internally.
I see.
Mm-hmm. Great, like feeling into that
Awareness.
Yeah, great awareness. That. Thank you. Yeah.
I'll go.
Great, Jonathan.
Jonathan?
Different times in my life, I've probably been all of these. Split between saver and spender. Those are the two biggest, saver and spender. And I don't know what Kirsten would say. She might say the same thing. We almost never have any disagreement about money. So I'm thinking we probably have similar styles.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's pretty astute. The idea is when it's similar styles, there's more agreement. And when there's mismatch, there's more challenge. And one of the things that's really, well, we'll talk about how to minimize the challenge, but just the understanding of the different types and how core that is to just our worldview can help us get compassion for our perspective's not always right. Yeah. Greg and Lisa?
I was just telling this to somebody yesterday. I've had my own business for 20 years, and the first thing that I outsourced was my accounting. Yeah. So, like, I'm an avoider, but I'm smart, and I create the right structures for myself. I even had a CFO at one point. I'm an avoider. I think a blend between an avoider and monk. But I had to ask Greg because I think because I run my own business, but then Greg does the finances for the household. So it's an interesting hybrid for me.
It's also an interesting hybrid for you to be an avoider because you help people make money and you talk about money and you're reading books about, money. So it's a very unlikely avoider.
Well, I don't read books about money. I read books about abundance.
Yes.
I have a lot of fear. I had a lot of fear around money that would drive me. And so I think I'm moving more towards the monk in the sense that I don't want to focus on it. I just want it to like be, I want to be in flow around it.
Sounds like avoider to me. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Feeling it.
No, it's an important distinction, like not money, abundance.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not going to read money about like real estate or investing or anything like that.
Okay, got it.
Nice.
On the other hand,
that's a good segue into me. I'm a cis saver, but I do spend when it's important to me. So I'm not, I'm not like a Scrooge McDuck, hoarder in terms of the savings. So if there are quality things that add value to my life, I don't mind investing in those
gadgets
and spending. Yeah, whether it's a gadget or clothes or whatever. If it matters to me, I'll spend.
Great.
So somewhere between saver and spender.
Yeah. Okay, good. And how about how much conflict have the two of you weathered around money? Is it?
Well, we've had an interesting journey. I mean, over the last 25 years with money, because we had lean years.
Mhm.
You know, back when I decided to go back to school and get my doctorate, 3 months after that, she got laid off at work and decided to go into business for herself. And so that led into a decade of us, you know, being fairly lean. And we had to confront a lot of our, you know, financial stuff at that time, even to the point where financial meetings were so stressful for us, we decided to have naked finance meetings.
Yay.
And that was just our way of trying to make it, you know, a little bit lighter, because there were so many arguments at that time that, you know, we figured we would be less likely to yell at each other if we were naked.
And did that work? Because it sounds brilliant to me.
It did work.
Okay, so everybody take note. I love that.
Yeah.
That's a great tip. But also how human it is that when there's lean years and when things are challenged, that's when when we're in lack, more conflict comes up.
Mm-hmm.
And I just, Devin, sweetie, sorry. Can you tell him to stop? So when we're in abundance, it's easy to be generous and to be in harmony. So I want to bring up a point that's almost not talked about anywhere. I mean, this is the power of this group, right? Like T. Harv Eker does not have any teachings on how do you handle your finances with other lovers. You know, what are your agreements about, and in most of our cases, and maybe yours too, our other lovers don't make as much money as we do. And then, you know, of course we want to be generous and we want to go on trips, and then you go, okay, and what of, you know, everybody contributing to their capacity, and how do we handle the equity around that, and how do we handle the jealousy of like, oh wow, it's birthdays and gifts and trips, and you know, I mean, there's no roadmap for how to really handle that, and it's one of those, like many things in conscious extraordinary relating, it's like, okay, well, we just have to talk about it. We have to shine a light on it and see how it feels and what feels equitable. And again, not a problem when we're making great money, but you know, the year that Michael and I lived with Rachel, and Rachel didn't have a job, and Michael decided to change jobs, and it was like that was one of those deal-breaking financial, like, it all became about money then. It was like, wait, we've got another lover living with us, and how do we, it's madness because there's no guidance on that as well, or no rule book.
Mm-hmm.
So I am curious, like, just show of hands, if you've actually had conflicts, or if you've fought over how much money, you know, another lover is costing. I'm curious if that has been an issue for other people in relationships. Okay. Not a big issue here, huh? Good. All right. Well, that's because you didn't try to take on an unemployed lover. But it is valuable. Go ahead, Lisa. I can't hear you, Lisa.
Greg asked me what you said and I was repeating it.
Oh, got it. Okay, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So
no, we haven't done that.
So we will you know, table that, and I think move into this really powerful, life-changing teaching that's recently changed our life around this.
Yeah. So in my journey around you know, being in a beautiful state despite circumstances, I ended up going broke at one point and realizing that I was still happy. You know, I was still able to be in a beautiful state, and it made it really easy to bounce back and start making money again. This was about, I don't know, 3 years ago. And when we'd gone to Sweden, and I was looking at that and I was like, okay, what is it, you know, about money that, you know, I had fear my whole life about money, you know, not having enough money to, you know, send Devin to school, college, all of this stuff. And I realized that I didn't have to have that fear. And simultaneously, we went up to Marin, and we met.
Sharmila was with us on a trip
to the Purpose Summit.
That's right.
Yeah, it was the Purpose Summit up in Marin. And one of the speakers there was Lynn Twist. So she wrote a book called The Soul of Money. She's also the woman who set up the World Hunger Organization. And they're looking at world hunger being eliminated in about 10 years. And that's the path that's been happening with that. She also set up was one of the people that set up the Pachamama Alliance. So if you guys are familiar with any of those, those things. But her message was around, she was talking about the soul of money, this book that she'd written. So I immediately got it. And when I read it, I was like, oh my God, it kind of explained what was happening to me in this past, couple of years, where I had, all my fear and things that had kind of gone away about money. The way she describes it in The Soul of Money, there's two main fallacies in our culture. One is that there's scarcity. Money was set up as a scarcity thing. If money was growing on trees, it wouldn't be scarce. It also wouldn't have any value. So we put value together with that scarcity. But it's a fallacy, because really, there's abundance, throughout the world, just like food. There's plenty of food to feed everybody on earth. It's just a matter of us getting our heads around it, as a human culture, so that we can
distribute it.
Yeah, so we can distribute it, and so that we can have people, not in fear, not in lack. But
yeah, I want to add to that with the example of diamonds. Tall, where is he today?
Oh, where's Tall?
Tall's father's a jeweler, and I think I learned this through their family, that there are enough diamonds. There's not enough. There's mines full of diamonds that are being bought and actually destroyed. So the diamond companies are trying to create the illusion that there's scarcity to keep the value of diamond really high. And that's such a great symbol. That's happening. I mean, it epitomizes this kind of how we're manipulated around this idea of what is scarce is valuable. And, the most valuable thing in the world is air. We would all die in 2 minutes if we didn't have it. But we can't, that is actually the most valuable life-giving thing. But and that's an example of, there is abundance, but then there's this whole commodification capitalist bent that where scarcity is almost manufactured in order to keep us exchanging value at a level of if it's limited supply, then you're going to pay more for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, or even clean water. So people now, it's a $10 billion industry to drink water bottles. Well, that wasn't the case 20, 30 years ago, where it hadn't been created as a scarcity. The other fallacy is that more is better. I kind of look at money now as, it's almost like food, right? If you don't have enough food, obviously it's a problem. You starve, and you can die. But the other side, if you have too much food, it's just as big a problem. Obesity, all the things that come with that. And even when we look at the wounding that we have, a lot of people that have sexual wounding will become obese to protect themselves, or they'll go anorexic, the opposite direction. But we don't see that with money, because our culture hasn't taught us that more isn't really better. Having too much actually makes us, it takes us into a dysfunctional place, where we're hoarding that money. It's like it's like that that obesity that we have within our culture. So we have a culture that has an eating disorder around money, basically. Okay. And so within the Soul of Money, coming back to it, she talks about a sufficiency, that the right amount of money is sufficient amount of money. If you don't have enough money, obviously it's a problem because you're struggling. But if you have too much money, it's also a problem. And it's actually an even more sinister problem, because it ends up like bleeding into our relationships with other people, in our striving. It can lead to things like, like genocide, where people are doing genocide. In Mexico, I learned that, part of all this drug war was, they have all these killings down in the south of Mexico. Well, it turned out it was a Canadian mining company that killed the indigenous people because they wanted the land, and the indigenous people were saying, hey, no, this is our land. So the military went in and killed everybody, and they just called it, drug cartels, and washed it through. But it was, this dysfunction of money, and that we see in our culture as well. It's just hidden or not hidden.
Yeah,
not hidden so
it turns into workaholism, and people are so fixated on money that they miss out on the quality of life and living itself. They're living to make money as opposed to living, that money helps them live.
Yeah. And so those are the basic premises of that book. I highly recommend it, The Soul of Money by Lynn Twist. But those are the basic basic premises with it. And once I read it, it really released all kinds of fear that I had like in my life, just about, am I going to strike? Am I going to be the millionaire? Am I going to have all of these things? Do I need to have all of these things? And it also, as soon as I had that new relationship with money, with money as a lover, suddenly our relationship just got so much better. It's like, okay, I don't have that like ongoing fear and striving and all of that. So
I want to say that, although Michael and I, in our almost, 18 years have only thought about money, that time with Rachel, and maybe, I can count on one hand how many times we've thought about money, honestly, even though money has never been like something that we struggled with relationally. Michael's reading this book is the single most profound thing that shifted our relating. And so what I'm pointing to is that even if you're not in conflict about money, money has a core effect on our identity and even our ability to relate. So what I attribute this to is whether we know it or not, especially in the masculine, in the provider or whatever, but we all have masculine in us. There is an identity around our worth and our value that can be a bit pathological because we live in a sick culture. And when that identity is uncoupled from money, like when you really get the essence of who we are isn't worthy or valued based on your income. Once that's uncoupled, your identity from your money relationship, and there's a freedom in who you are, then you can relate, from essence, from soul. And if you're still carrying around that identity, even if you're not fighting about it, it blocks you from like true connection.
Mm-hmm. I had an experience as I became involved with the spiritual community 20 years ago, that I realized that I was always striving to make money and to be famous, right? So that I could have lovers, come to me. Like I didn't feel like I was worthy unless I had
rich and famous.
Yeah, I was rich and famous. And it was funny because about 10 years into that process, I realized that, I was surrounded with all of these people. I could have like all the women that I wanted. I could have, all of the love was there. And it wasn't actually the people that were rich and famous that were getting all the love and all the sex. I realized that, they were, these, I could say hippie guys are, out there, having this beautiful life and it had nothing to do with, money or fame.
Yeah.
And at that point, I kind of detached those things. I was able to detach those in my own mind. But I realized that is, kind of there within our culture.
Well, that's, it's Michael's kind of, your unique identity was around rich and famous. Each one of us has another identity around what success means or what I have to do. And, sometimes, T. Harv Eker points at it and says that we've all got this internal thermostat and it's deep in our subconscious, but what it is value and worth. So the big breakthrough, regardless of what, your definition of success might look like, what you think you need to be valuable or how you have to prove your worthiness, is to break through that identity. And at the core, at the depths of the core, to be in the sufficiency of like, wow, life is abundant, and I don't, and to allow yourself to be provided for, by the universe. And then the right relation with money, if you want to have a real tantric relationship, it's to say, what if this goddess, this green goddess, were here to support my right livelihood? How much money, or how would I be in relationship with her so that I could live the kind of lifestyle that's aligned with my values, right? So just as Greg was saying, well, if it's, whether it's a gadget or it's something that's really enriching, I would be willing to invest in it. It's like, what do you value, right? And so Michael and I both value travel, education. These are things that we will pay any amount for. We don't buy a whole lot of products. We don't care what kind of cars we drive. Like, there's things that we're like, yeah, we don't value that. And what the deeper assessment is, like, what am I here on earth for? How do I want to live? And, how can money support me in that lifestyle? It's not about the money or the amount or how it looks. It's about, what's needed for me to live my life from soul, oriented around my values. And how can I, be in relationship with money, a healthy relationship with money in a way that supports living to my fullest.
And it's not expensive, is basically the answer that comes from Lynn Twist, that sufficiency is, really living within our soul. It's not expensive at all, in terms of, dollars and cents. So,
yeah.
There's one other metaphor that's used a lot when people talk about the glass being half full or half empty, and how we see that. I think that's a big fallacy. When we look at the glass as being half full or half empty, we're ignoring the primary fact is, are we thirsty? Right? So if we have what we need already, it doesn't matter if the glass is half full or half empty. Right? So that was something that,
beautiful.
Yeah, just an idea that might help, kind of get us into that idea of sufficiency. Like, are we able to live within that, what our soul is calling for with what we have? And if not, or if so, do we need to strive? Do we need to have the stress about striving for more money?
So, I want us to integrate this a little bit. And by that, I mean, apply it to you and how it's affecting your relationship. We're definitely going to explore this deeper next week, but what I want to,
and what we're, the homework is basically going to be around starting to look at what, since we're at the new year, we're going to be looking at, the next year, like what our goals are, but from a different lens, a lens of sufficiency and soul, for the couple.
Yeah. So the integration work, through the homework is, what if this New Year's, this is such a spectacular time to look at all the different areas of your life and say, how do I want to upgrade? What do I want to vision? What do we already did in our work table and the beginning of the course, these different, I think it's 8 areas of relationship. And we want to encourage you to actually have goals in all of those areas. But the goals in money, around money, the invitations to look at it differently than in the past, where you may have said, I want to make $100,000 in annual income after taxes, in exchange for, through multiple streams of income, in exchange for my, online products and public speaking and, like whatever your goal may have sounded like. We're asking you to look at, what do I want to create in my life? How do I want to live? And what is the sufficient amount of money that would be necessary to allow me to live where I'm oriented around my values?
And not even putting a number on it, but also leaving the possibility of leaving it open to something like, I have sufficient amount of money to live in a very happy state or whatever. Instead of saying, hey, I need $1 million in the bank account, we're saying I have sufficient to do that. And using some of those sex magic tools as well. May this or something better come in the highest good of all.
Yeah.
Putting that together with your goals. It really helps with the manifestation.
So what's important here is the emphasis off of the, the financial, the number, the accounting part, and the emphasis on what is the money for? Why are you trying to make $100,000? It's like, well, I'm actually wanting in the coming year to have healthy, plant-based, organic food, and for my family. And this coming year, I want to do, travel the world to do my ministry, or I want to invest in this new education program because I want to give back. It's more looking at what you value, how you can bring value into the world, and how you can be valued for it. And then what's important in relationship is how do we actually support each other in that? So I might have my goals and Michael might have his goals. Are we allies to each other in this? Because as we know, not only is it a sex negative world, it's also really a pathologically, mixed message money world. And unless you're, Lisa or some of the other people who have masterminds where you can actually talk about this, most people can't. But who is most important to talk to about this with is your beloved. So the question is, how often do you talk about it? But not just from the, hey, here's the mortgage and did you pay the gardener and this and that, not just that superficial level, but the deep, what is our value in the world? What is the value we're bringing? How do we want to live? Can we talk about that on a more regular basis? And I'm excited, like many of these topics each month, this is actually how Michael and I, this is our come from.
there's one other part too, as we talk about this discussion, which is the first chakra is, considered the money chakra, the base chakra. And I think it's important that we address that, and that you guys address it as well when you're working with each other. But this idea of like how much is sufficient to make us feel secure about the future, because I think that's, so much fear is just about, projection of the future, but money is so much tied together with that, this projection of, oh, okay, but if I don't have $1 million in my bank account when I retire, what does that mean? And so people are all bound up and tight about that. So really bringing that into the discussion, what is sufficient to make you feel secure? What is sufficient to be happening right now to make you feel secure about retirement?
So the felt sense of the root chakra, and we can all just take a breath and relax our asshole, is, what's happening in your sphincter. Like really, what's happening in your base chakra? Because if you're having this conversation, or even listening to us, even if you're listening to us and you're feeling like, it's like it's time to go, oh, wait, we're actually talking about sufficiency. What sufficiency feels like is a relaxed base. And when the anus is relaxed, like that's the base of the central axis, and that's where we connect to earth and earth energies. And when it's contracted, we're cutting off from earth, and we're cutting off from a sense of Mother Earth is supporting us. That's actually where abundance comes from. In fact, Baba Dez, who's the founder of the International School of Temple Arts, his revelation, his like big download about wanting to bring heaven on earth, it came through in Hawaii when he was gardening. And it's not gardening, he was farming, and he pulled some carrots out of the earth, and he just realized, fuck, he didn't have money, but the earth would provide. Like he really understood, like the earth is abundance, and that just changed everything. And, now these teachings are in 42 countries. Like, it's just truth. It keeps getting shared. One of the base teachings of this mystery school is how to really keep your anus open so that you can be in contact with the root, with the abundance that comes through the base all the time. So this conversation is just talking heads. It's just superficial if you don't bring it all the way into the felt sense of what's happening in the body, which is why I love Greg and Lisa's naked finance. It's like, okay, we're fighting. Let's get naked. Let's get, let's bring it home into the body.
Yeah.
Maybe ass play is the key to abundance.
Ass play. Woo!
It certainly can be. Yeah, it certainly can be.
Yeah. So maybe
relax into it.
Maybe the homework should be anal sex magic.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what the homework is, and then I want to hear from you guys in terms of, what you're getting from this. We'll share like pearls of wisdom, is to, it's almost New Year's, it's like, I want you to go through these 8 areas of your life and look at the abundant, sufficient life that you want to be living in 2020. So it's like you're visioning into it, so that you do that in the different areas. And when you come to the money and the finance, it's like your financial goal is that which is sufficient, is necessary and sufficient for you to support the life you want to live, not like money for money's sake.
Mm-hmm. And not more.
Yeah.
Yeah, not more than that, for sure.
Yeah. And so that being the goal, the other goal is, or the other homework, is to actually have a money conversation. And one of the things Michael and I talked about, we, right now, our current rhythm is once a month to have a kind of financial, like not a big full audit, but like, hey, where are we at?
Just a check-in.
Just a check-in about money. Once a month is what we do now. for some, it's more appropriate to do it once a week. For some, it's quarterly. But the idea that you're on a team, you're working on this together, you do it in some rhythmic way, keeps the harmony. So it's not like, oh shit, we're going to argue about it when something comes up, as opposed to it's like, oh, we've got a conversation. If there's money issues, we'll have that conversation at that time. But so that's a suggestion. That's a best practice suggestion. I think what I'd like to do, and I haven't talked to you about this, but
okay,
last week.
You can talk to me about it right now.
Okay, good. Last month's homework, as Greg and Marina posted that they got really turned on from like doing that relationship evolving dyad and adding in bed or in sex at the end of it. So I'm going to actually suggest that you do a relationship dyad. We haven't done this, is why I'm saying I haven't talked to you about it. Do this. I mean, this tool is such a master tool for relationship, and I'd like you to do it about money. So it's, tell me something you like about,
me and
money. Yeah. And it's like me and finances, or, and so you're talking about that, and you're kind of appreciating each other and how you handle money.
Tell me something you think we agree on about money.
Yeah. So it's like, okay, we agree on this. You're getting harmonized. And
tell me something you want me to know
about money.
Money.
And it might be something about your history or your programming, or your, like, something you bought that you haven't told your beloved that you bought, whatever it is.
That's money cheating. Call that.
So play with just talking deeper about money, so you can help support each other, coming into more alignment, letting go of limiting or old paradigm beliefs about it.
Yeah, that'll be a nice one to kind of loosen up the soil for for planting those goals for the year as well, and then going into the goals, with the overlay of sufficiency and not too much and not too little.
Great.
I have a question. I know 3 of them are, the third one, what you want me to know about you and money. There's a 4th one though.
No, just 3.
Oh, just 3? Oh, okay. And also, do you have the 8 areas listed somewhere?
Yeah, I will repost those. And they are on the group, because it's the same. When we did the work table, it's the same 8 areas. But it's
the health and money relationship.
Yeah, it's actually every week that we do for the 12 weeks, we're doing one of those topics, right?
So sex was last month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I will, but let's start with Jonathan or whoever wants, and let's go around and say, what's the most valuable thing you got in this session?
Or what's it loosening up for you?
Yeah.
What's realizations?
An insight that's coming through for you, and basically looking for the harvest of this call until next week.
I'll go. As you might know, I've done a lot about money and written books about it, so I'm familiar with this. But I love the idea of money as a metaphor, and as a lover, especially. I was unfamiliar with the 4 types of money people, and that was very useful. But in terms of, say, something that's impacted me, I plan to read Lynn Twist's book. I've known about it for 100 years, but to hear about how it impacted you, I think I've seen that even having more money doesn't necessarily give you that feeling of abundance. So I think having that input will be very useful.
Beautiful.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. Todd?
Yeah, I'll go. I'm really kind of in the moment caught up in this idea of abundance and sufficiency, because in my monkishness, my idea of abundance is not only related to me and my immediate, family, I guess, S word. But then there's abundance and how abundance for me shows up.
Shows what?
Show up in the world. So the question for me becomes sort of this idea in my life, sort in my arch of my own productivity and my own what I'm bringing to the world. I think the question becomes, where is the delta between sufficiency and abundance? And am I looking at it from an egotistical standpoint, or am I looking at it from a greater good standpoint? And the answers in there, I think, are what informs sort of true north as far as money and how it fits in.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful.
That's where I am at the moment on that. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. And you, Renee? Yeah.
I like. I really resonate with the green goddess metaphor, and being in relationship as lover with that. I've always come from a framework of energy is money is energy, and seeing it as a tool to be used. So, bless you.
Mm-hmm.
I think I really resonate with that money as lover, and looking at building relationship with it, particularly avoidance place with it. And then the other thing I really resonate with, although I'm struggling with the term sufficiency, is this is looking at, what would I create, or what do I want my life to be like, and how is that life then supported by money as my lover. So I really maybe want to do some writing around that, and play with that. My issue with the word sufficiency is, I think for me, I was raised with messages, we don't talk about money, and there's just enough. That concept of there's just enough.
Right.
I've always had just enough. Right. And so sufficiency is like being sufficient, being just enough, not ever allowing for there to be more an alignment to abundance. So I think I would prefer to go, how do I want to live my life in abundance and have money show up in support of that abundance? Look at it that way.
Sweet. So I'm gonna crosstalk for a moment, and just like the question is, how's this landing on you? And obviously, I want everybody to feel into what's true. We don't have a truth that's higher than your own authority, and ultimately, we're all evolving this conversation. So with that disclaimer in place, I just want to play with the semantics, right? So we're proposing, or Lynn Twist is proposing, this idea of sufficiency. I don't like the word either. And words are important, because when you get the accurate word, there's a frequency with ooh, that word is an upgrade. And it's what we want is the frequency upgrade, regardless of the syntax. But I want to share, a really important distinction. And it's around, this is deep. Okay. Soul of money. Soul and ego and personality are really different. The personality, the the cracked sense of self, the identity that's formed, that's the one that has the question of I'm not enough, or I'm too much, or is it enough? It's just the identity. The identity does that dance. Soul doesn't do that. The identity ego has the, like, am I lovable? Is it, like identity inherently is the one that puts us into lack. And then the overcompensation for the lack sense, overcompensation becomes, now I'm going to be abundant. Now I'm going to be like super likable and gregarious and have all these coping skills so that, you can't see that underneath. I don't feel like I'm enough. Okay. Now that's the game the ego plays in many different flavors and forms. But soul is connected to the whole. It's connected to source, and it's coming through the cracked identity. It expresses itself through the cracked, and this concept of sufficient, whether we use that word or not, but the concept of the soul of money and sufficiency there's a suchness to it. And by suchness, it's when the soul has those crystal moments of like, oh, it is what it is. It's not a striving or trying. It's not an overcompensation. There's a suchness to this is the sufficient and necessary for to be in right relation with truth. And so maybe for me, I resonate with this idea of being in right relation. And we all know that having overabundance is not right relation, like indulgence or like going on a spree is not right relation. So, the essence, when you read this book, it may upgrade the word or not, but I really like the frequency of right relation with money. And that's what we're really striving for in this month, in this exploration, is like, okay, if I'm in relationship with money, what is right relation? So it's not like I'm obsessed in a, NRE with money and I'm not ignoring it. So we'll leave it there, but I'm grateful for the opportunity to talk into how when we're in right relation, we're not in the egoic identity of it. We're actually in a soul relationship with money. Yeah.
And I likewise am really happy that you brought that up, Renee, because it obviously triggered something for you that you were able to identify, and having that awareness of the word and what it was doing for you is just taking it to that next level of being able to, really, really refine that so we can find what that soul, the right relation with the soul of money as the lover. Mm-hmm. That's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Who else has a harvest?
Yeah, I can go. I think for me, this is a nice touchstone. We were actually just talking about finances a little bit before this meeting, and specifically talking about some of the habits or things that we want to change in the coming year. So this is a nice touchstone, I think, for us this month to just get a little more conscious about how we work with money together. We've had our lean years, and we had to uncouple and deal with a lot of our emotions and beliefs around money at that time. So I don't feel like we're necessarily in that place where we've got a lot of deep, gnarly roots in money. I think for us, or at least from my perspective, it's about how do we flow with it on a regular basis so that it's not something where we have blips of conversations, but we're just kind of in a dance with it all the time, and have some fluidity around it in our conversations and how we discuss it, address it, track it, whatever aspects of it we're involved in. That's kind of what I got out of this.
Great.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
I don't have anything to add.
Okay.
What's that?
Thank you.
I don't
Okay.
have anything to add.
It does inspire me to do a final piece, but let's finish the circle with Greg and Marina. Thank you for that.
Marina, as the avoider, would you like to go?
Sorry, no, I'm juggling 2 kids here at the moment, and it's just not working out.
Okay, no problem.
Greg,
Okay.
back to you.
Back to me. Okay. Well, I can really relate to Renee and Todd's comments about this playing with this concept of abundance and enough. Well, another word that I sometimes heard used is satiated. You know, when the sponge is full, the sponge is full. You know, how much is enough? There is such a thing as enough. But also this thing having more than enough, that's almost the definition of abundance, is having more than enough. So there's this kind of playing with the semantics, and I'm still playing with it. And then, so what I feel, what really resonates for me is the purpose of behind the money. Like, why am I working for the money? Why are we working for the money? And having it connected to in the lover metaphor, I love that. Is that the last thing on our bucket list was really the most important thing, which is getting us to live in the same city. So is that why? Is that mission of having enough money, sufficient amount of finances to take care of everything that has to do with us being able to come together and live together? That's the why. And there's like no question dollar amount. It's just like, so then what comes up to me is, what do I need to do? And where do I need to grow? And with with money as my lover, it's like, how does she need me to grow to be the kind of lover that's going to hold that relationship? So I'm looking at the doing and also the being of how I need to grow and transform myself so that the soul goal of being together can be met. And so that's a lot of the other stuff I'm still figuring out, and I'm like not 100% clear, but that's what I'm clear on. I was like, finding out what needs to happen for us to be sufficiently funded for her and me both to have our bucket list opened up where we can do it any day of the week instead of, here and there.
I love it.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it's really the essence, like money will support this relationship, coming together. And so I don't know, I just really appreciate the fractals of, like, we're talking about your relationship to money, we're talking about how money supports this relationship, and then decoupling it from, it's just changing the meaning of what money is for. Yeah. Good.
Awesome. Marina, did you want to put anything in?
Sure.
You don't have to.
I think I can see how money is connected to time. Like, I think the biggest abundance or the biggest resource is time, actually, and I don't have that time. So like today is like, it's really in my face. And money as a lover, I love that concept. And I feel like money as my lover now, it comes and it goes. It's like an inconsistent lover. It's like sometimes it stays for a weekend and then it's gone for a couple of months,
Yeah.
So
you have a long distance relationship with money.
Yeah. So I'm excited about recreating that relationship. And I think we just unveiled that motivation for myself personally and for us as a couple is like, if I am to relocate, if I am to move, the finances are a big part of it, and having it also like online or mobile, like that, there's different parts that need to come into play, but the motivation for it is nice and strong. So
thank you.
Awesome. Can I say something?
Sure.
So this kind of came up because we're all poly here, and thinking about money as a lover. It's interesting. When we have other lovers, I think I use this map earlier, a couple of months ago. But if we have another lover, we can, like, let's say Kamala Devi has another lover. I can be like not okay with it, and I can give her a bunch of crap, about it and make it hard. Or I can be accepting of that other lover, right, and be okay with that other lover. Or I can be more than okay. I can be encouraging her to be with that other lover. And money, it fits in that map perfectly. Like we don't have to just, be okay with money. Like we don't fight about money. It's just kind of a neutral thing. We can take it to that next level of it actually enhancing our relationship. Money as a lover that enhances our primary relationship. Yeah. Right. And then there's that fourth level, which I'm still struggling with, which is what is it that is in the soul of money? Like, what is it that we can do for like money, like another lover? Like how can we actually like integrate what the soul needs are of that other lover? And that takes us even to another level, which with money, it's so much about our culture and what money means to us. Because money isn't a separate thing. It's something that we created, all of us. It was thousands of years ago. It was our ancestors that did it, but we're all playing the same game. So if we can understand what that game is and what that soul of money is, why money is here, and we can make it, not just enhance our relationships, but take us to that next evolutionary place. Yeah. That's what I'm kind of seeing out into the future with it.
When Michael and I were visioning this class, we were like, okay, let's, I waited for him to come back from the breath work. And I was like, I want to drop in and really co-create this with you. We were both really clear. We're like, in most ways in our life, many, many ways, Michael and I are living the dream. And we are living a life that is what of our co-creation and how we want the world to be. That's part of our integrity. The one area of our life that we're like, this isn't right relation. And it's with money, not because of how much we're making or not making, but because we wish we lived in a society that didn't participate in this game in this way, this profit loss game of competition. Anytime anybody's, profiting, like profit means, it's basically differential advantage. And that differential advantage puts war into humanity. And so there are other visions of not just barter and trade, but sacred economics. That's a whole other level that we can't actually see from where we stand. And next week, when we get into the mastermind, I'm hoping that James will be here. He's got a beautiful teaching and vision of what, what's possible in sacred economics. And it's worth us kind of visioning and talking into it together. But in the meantime, everything that we came up with for the course was like, hey, let's look at who we need to be in the intermediary phase. Like this is a transitional phase between the current economic situation and what's possible for the new culture that we're wanting to usher. And in that transition, what do we need to do? And that's the come from in what we decided to talk to you about today. Mm-hmm. Yeah, is like, hey, we're in this transition. How do we make the most? There is a game. We may not like the game that we're playing, but how do we play it with the most integrity? Mm-hmm. So I do look forward to, you're doing your goal work, and we'll cover the harvest and having a deeper conversation with each other.
And do those dyads to loosen things up. Before you do the goals, do a couple of dyads at least.
Yeah.
And it'll make the goals a lot more
and then
a lot more forthcoming.
Oh my gosh, so next week we'll meet, and then again the next time we meet will be in 2020. It's mind-blowing. We're really, really at the end of the year here.
It's the 20s. The roaring 20s are coming right now. Next month.
Sweet. Any final PSs or notes for closure?
Okay.
Well, we look forward to next week. Blessings, everyone.
Love you guys.
Mwah.
Are we done?
Oh, cancel. I need to stop the recording.